Healthy Living. Once again, we're here with Dr. Ravi Srivastava. We're at Hilton Head Hospital. It is a glorious day today. A little warm, but it feels pretty good. And we're talking about 2020, the new school year, how kids and parents are adapting to sort of a moving target when it comes to education. In the first segment, we talked a lot about the social implications and the behavioral implications, some of the emotional implications. I'd like to talk a little bit about anxiety and depression and just that feeling of guilt and insecurity. When do I need to ask for help? Where can I go for help? What are you observing?
One of the challenges in this time of this pandemic is seeking adequate help. Face-to-face help is not available.
Correct.
Suddenly it's virtual help. It's more of an online meeting with your therapist and your doctors, which was a big adjustment and a big challenge. And the medical community and the technology community stepped up to it, and it was almost overnight that we had virtual meetings with the physicians and the therapists. And after the few initial glitches, everybody has adapted to it.
Yeah.
However, there has been noted to be long waiting times everywhere to get into a doctor, to get into a therapist. So people are having difficulties in dealing with an anxiety and depression associated with that. Now, going to the hospital, there's a huge anxiety in the population about that. Shall I go to the hospital? Is it safe? We know that it is safe.
Correct.
But the mental image that we have of a hospital is there are all kinds of patients over there and we will get infections over there. In fact, at this point of time, the hospitals are the most secure places.
Yeah.
And everybody's tested before they come in and go out. So it's kind of, and the practice of hygiene is highest in hospital because they are used to it. Other areas of people are having difficulty in understanding the intricacies of what is the level of hand washing or physical distancing which is required, and how not to break that integrity.
Exactly. Dr. Ravi, at what point does normal anxiety, this is a crazy time and it's a little spooky and we don't really know, and I do feel anxious, but there are times where I feel that anxiety is sort of keeping me washing my hands, it's keeping me putting my mask on, so it's not negatively impacting me, although it doesn't feel good. And then at what point in time does that shift to where it is more disorder? I don't know if that's even a question.
It is, and if you were not worried and anxious at these times, I would be worried about you.
Okay.
So anxiety is a normal reaction to this. However, the impairment, if the anxiety is causing impairment from you not being able to perform your duties as if at your work,
okay,
or at home, not to be able to take care of your household chores or look after yourself, that's when it's a problem.
Okay.
But if you're not going to work because of anxiety, if you're not looking after your children or yourself, that is where the impairment comes in because of anxiety. Otherwise, we have learned to have this free-floating anxiety with us during these times.
And I think one of the biggest takeaways I had from the last time we talked is at 5 o'clock when I was sick and tired of feeling anxious, I would have a glass of wine. And you and I talked at the last interview and you were like, I'm not saying bad or good, but just pay attention to, are you numbing, avoiding, and escaping, and is that something that can become a habit? And just kind of saying those words out loud helped me step back and say, wait a minute, although I've been anxious all day, I'll go watch Netflix instead. And so I think what you shared is trying to come up with healthy options to sort of distract myself at the end of the day. Share with me a little bit about.
Yes, and everybody figures their own way out, depending on the circumstances. So there's no right or wrong here.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with having a glass of wine.
Okay.
For a lot of people, as long as it's not causing any impairment.
Got it.
And sometimes they don't know that there's impairments. Other people can see that, but still, there is no prohibition from drinking.
Right.
As long as it is within moderation and within the guidelines of health, from the health point of view.
And I guess what I was saying is you made me pay attention to what was something that initially was really exciting and I looked forward to relax, to where it became a habit and I didn't think about it. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
And like again, for most people it might be okay, but people with a problem,
Okay, got
not.
it. Okay. Other ways to tolerate anxiety and distress. Do you talk a little bit about that with your
We
folks?
talked about that last time too, about what most people usually figure out on their own.
Okay.
The downtime.
Got it.
The relaxation with music or activity in the yard or watching movies or hanging out with family, going out and exercising. The nature, it has all is available to us.
So let's go back a little bit then. Let's step back and talk about some of the behavioral implications, if we can, about the pandemic and what you're observing in the kids and adolescents and parents.
Well, whenever there's stress, which
Okay.
is persistent, sooner or later some people break. And how do we express the reaction to that? It's through anxiety, depression, anger,
Okay. Oh, anger. Good. Yeah.
and acting out.
Okay.
So there have been incidents we have noticed of domestic violence.
That makes sense.
Kids behaving so much in a way that it's so stressful that
They just have to.
parents are yelling more, which is again, there has to be a mother's voice, which is
Right.
a tone to manage those kids all the day long. But at the same time, we have to know when it is a bit too much
Okay. That makes sense.
and able to rein it back.
And close, we're in the house now 24/7, so things that maybe didn't bother me before now are.
Now, how do you work from a table at home, expect a child to work and do the school work on a different table, and the third child who's not the toddler be able to play at the same time? There's no easy way of doing that. So if you're stressed
Yeah.
and behaving poorly from time to time because of that, it is okay.
Makes sense. Talk to me about sleep. Is sleep impacted during this kind of unusual time?
I really have not seen many people having unusual difficulties in
Okay.
the sleep other than the stress related, because the people who are not going to work don't have to get up that early in the morning suddenly.
Okay.
So for the earlier part of the pandemic, there was almost like a break.
Got it. Yeah, oh, it's great.
Yeah. And now, since the anxiety of not working for that long is coming back, the sleep disturbances are coming back too. But at the same time, it is not only one separate thing that we have a sleep disorder. It's part of the spectrum of anxiety and depression.
Are anxiety and stress different?
Yes, but anxiety could be free-floating for no rhyme or reason.
Okay.
Stress is because of external or life events,
Oh, so that makes sense to me.
which can create anxiety and does create anxiety.
So moving forward, are there any kinds of tips or counsel or words of wisdom that you have that could perhaps guide some of us to better be able to manage through these tough times?
Yes, we are at a much better place now than we were 6 months ago
Okay.
or 3 months ago in knowing about this virus and the pandemic and our response to it. Accumulated response as a community has been phenomenally well.
Yeah, it has. Exactly.
And it has made a difference. We are seeing that. So we should trust ourselves as humanity that we will be able to figure a way out to learn to live with this virus, which is not going anywhere. We have learned how to deal with tuberculosis and smallpox and
polio, everything else,
and
the flu.
HIV, and we have always figured a way out. And we are figuring a way out with this one too. So we have to trust our human endeavor and genius to be able to collectively figure it out and be hopeful and positive about it.
Well, I don't think I can top that. That was actually brilliant. And I think just listening to the hopefulness and optimism is really helpful during this time. So Dr. Ravi, thank you very much. We want to thank all of you for joining us here on Healthy Living. Have a safe and wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.